Starting a business is relatively easy. Leaving one is much more complicated. Most business owners can tell you exactly how they started, but very few can tell you exactly how they will exit, how they will leave the business. And the problem is that you may not choose that date. Often that date will be decided for you. Your exit could be retirement, it could be selling the business, shareholder dispute, immigration, but it could also be disability, a serious illness, or the worst, your death. So there's one question every owner should eventually answer. What happens to the business when I'm no longer there? What this video will cover, I want business owners to look at business life insurance differently, not just as a policy, not something your broker or insurance sells you, but as a business planning discipline. We're going to look at three things. What happens to the ownership? What happens to the money and what happens to the debt? And last, what happens to the business itself? We will not be talking about insurable risks only. We will not be talking about insurable risk only, but some of other risks we discuss with business owners in our succession planning meetings. My name is Albert Skierman. I'm with AS Brokers in Gauteng in South Africa. I work with business owners on business insurance and succession risks. I've been sitting in meetings with business owners as long as I can remember, sitting with them when we plan, sitting with them when they make claims, sitting with them when they make money, sit with them when they lose money. I sit with their widows when they die, and I help them with investment planning if they manage to successfully get out of their business. Many of these risks are not obvious. Uh, you've got to discuss them and have a discussion with somebody to realize that they're there. And they often only become obvious when something changes. Why do business owners not plan the exit? If you just think of how much planning goes into building the business, budget, staffs, equipment, premises, finance, clients, growth, but where's the deadline for exit planning? You get reminders from SARS, you get reminders from your bank, you get reminders from your suppliers, but nobody sends you a reminder saying that your business still has no plan without you. So that exit strategy, stay on the list. It's important, but never urgent. Until suddenly it becomes urgent. That assumption that somebody somehow will sort it out. Owners often assume people will work it out. My spouse will speak to the partners. My partner will buy my shares. The bank, they will understand. The family will be okay. My wife probably will take over the business. Just imagine the opposite. Imagine the shareholder dies. The family is now dealing with the estate. The partners are dealing with the business. The bank is probably looking at the exposure. And the executor is looking for the assets. They're looking for the cash. Everyone wants answers. And they all want them at the same time. That's the worst possible time to start designing your plan. Let's talk about agreement and policy. Agreement versus insurance, life insurance policies. The distinction is quite important. The agreement is a plan and the policy is the funding mechanism. The agreement says who must do what, at what value, under what circumstances, in what order. It can exist without insurance, that's possible. You can have an agreement with your partner to buy it out. It's not necessary to have a policy. But the insurance can provide money when the plan is triggered. Insurance can also exist without a proper agreement, and we see it all the time. People buy and sell policies, but they never put the agreement in place. So that's possible. But money without instructions can create another problem. Just imagine your partner receiving a couple of million, but there's no agreement that he must pay the money into your estate. Do you trust him to pay that money into your estate without a proper agreement? Can you be trusted with a bunch of money? If money pays out to you and you've got the option to keep it or pay it to your partner's estate, there's no agreement in place. The agreement without funding may create an obligation nobody can afford. So never confuse the policy with the plan. We can reduce the need for business assurance to four basic questions. Number one, who's going to buy your share and where's the money going to come from? Number two, who repays the debt, especially the debt that you personally signed surety for? Number three, who runs the business on a Monday morning if you're not there? Number four, where does the estate, your estate, going to get the cash needs to be wound up? Those four questions lead us into 8 areas. And this makes the video long, but this is important. If you're a business owner, you need to listen to this. The buy and sell agreement. Let's start with ownership. Imagine 3 shareholders in an engineering business. They've worked together for years. One of the shareholders dies. His shares do not simply disappear. They're going to become part of his estate. Now, look at the problem from both sides. His family may inherit the interest in the business, but all they want is cash and income. They probably don't want the share in the business. They can't live off a share. They need money, they need cash, they need income. And look at the shareholders that's left behind. They want operational continuity. They want to be able to continue with the business. They may not want the co-owner. They may not like the co-owner. And the problem is they may not have the cash to buy the shares. That's a problem a buy and sell arrangement is designed to address. The agreement determines what should happen to the ownership interest. It should also establish a workable valuation method. The business can be valued or agreed for too much, and that can create a tax problem in the estate, or it can be for too little. And the family then do not get the proper value of the business. It's maybe a bargain for the people that's buying the shares. The funding needs to support the agreement. It must be simple, a fair value for the family and a fair continuity for the business and the people that's left behind in the business. It should leave them with no emergency negotiations after the event. Just imagine your wife need to go and negotiate with your partners for a fair deal after you've passed away. Why not negotiate that deal while she's still alive? The exact legal structure must be properly drafted and reviewed on a regular basis. Now let's talk about key person insurance. And key person insurance, the name is more descriptive of, of what it does. You must ask yourself the question, who in this business cannot easily be replaced? It might be the founder, the technical director, the production manager, a top salesperson, uh, a person holding a critical certification. We see it in our business, or the person your biggest customer trusts. Just imagine you've got a big client. That client's relationship is built around one person. The person dies, and after a couple of weeks, you also lose your biggest customer. If that person disappears tomorrow, what happens financially? Does turnover fail? Does production slow down? Do clients leave? What if recruitment takes 6 months? Do you need to pay more for that replacement? Key person insurance is about the financial impact on the business. The business buys that policy, the business pays for it, and the business gets the proceeds. The business is generally the party that's being protected. This exercise must happen before the policy takes out. Put a rand value on the dependency of the business on a person and estimate the cost over a year, 18 months, 2 years. That calculations tell you far more than simply asking for a quote. That leads us to contingent liability and personal sureties. Now we get something many owners forget, personal sureties. Think back over the life of your business, the overdraft, vehicle finance, equipment finance, the lease, the suppliers that supply you may have asked you to sign surety, working capital facilities. How many times have you signed personally to get money or assets in your business? And can you list those obligations today? I can tell you, many business owners cannot. A personal surety can expose you personally for business debt. The exposure may only appear on your death, or if you are very unfortunate, it will appear when your business goes bust. I personally saw businesses fail because of sureties that were signed when business owners were very desperate. Depending on its wording and the underlying obligations, that exposure may continue. And I just want to tell you a personal story. I once got a friend to sign surety for me when my wife and I bought a business. And the person was willing to do it, and we went to the bank together. We were sitting opposite the bank manager. Myself was sitting on the left, my friend was on the right, and the bank manager behind the desk back in the days when we still had bank managers. And he pushed the paper over to my friend and he asked him to sign the surety. My friend pushed it back and he asked, "Are you getting me to sign an open surety, or is this surety for this transaction only?" I could see the bank manager change color, his face. He got up immediately and he probably got the people to change the document in the back office. Afterwards, I asked the person, "Why did you ask that question?" He said, "If I signed an open surety, I would be responsible for any debt that you may make with this bank in the future." And just think of it, if you sign surety for your business, you may personally be liable for any future debt that the business makes with that bank in the future. If you ask the bank to show you what you've signed, there's a good chance that you're not going to get it. It can potentially create a claim against your estate. So the first step is not insurance. Make a list. Find every surety and guarantee you possibly can. Confirm the current outstanding exposure. Then determine the risk and how it should be managed. Legal confirmation may be required on the actual surety wording. And if you cannot get your hands or confirmation on the sureties you signed, considering to cover them with life insurance amount, cover the outstanding debt and make your partners do the same. And that leads us to business loan protection. Business debt creates another question. What happens to the actual loan when the critical owner dies? That debt's not going to disappear, but the person behind the bank confidence may be gone. Facilities may be reviewed. The business may face additional pressure, and selling productive assets to repay those debts can make things even worse. Business loan protection focus on the business balance sheet. The objective is to provide funding to settle or reduce the relevant debt. Notice the distinction. Contingent liability looks at your personal exposure, and loan protection looks at the business debt. They are connected, but they are not automatically the same problem. If you find these practical business insurance discussions useful, please like my video, subscribe to my channel, and share it with other business owners, your partner, your accountant, your lawyer. We use accountants and lawyers to become referral partners, and we need to have discussions with them, to help us, to help them, help our clients identify these loans, these critical issues that the business owners need to talk about. We go into referral arrangements with these lawyers and accountants, and some of our biggest transactions came from accountants and lawyers. Put your business risk questions in the comments below and ask us to investigate them and make videos about them, write articles about them. We often see when something gets financed by the bank, the bank will ask for short-term insurance. It's compulsory. The law needs, you need to have short-term insurance on assets that's financed. We often see it. The person buys something, and in order for the bank to pay for that thing, we need to give proof that it's insured. But I've never once seen that they ask for the business succession plan. What's going to happen to the person if he dies? And I believe that they've covered themselves with sureties. That's why that's not an issue to them. But it should still be an issue to you. The next topic is shareholder protection. Ownership risk does not only arise on death. What happens if the shareholder becomes permanently disabled? Consuming but non-contributing. Imagine having a partner in your business that's disabled. He still needs to get his paycheck every month, but he's not there to contribute anymore. And then things that's not related to insurance, but what if there is a divorce? Insolvency. What if your partner becomes insolvent? A voluntary exit. A shareholder wants to sell to somebody that you don't even like. You don't want that person as a partner. This is why shareholder protection is broader than just life insurance and the contracts that your insurance broker discuss. Control and value is two different things. That's why a shareholder agreement matters. The company's memorandum of incorporation matters. Preemptive rights matters. Deadlock provisions matters. What happens if there's a disagreement? Are you going to settle it in court, or are you going to have an arbitrator this, deciding over this matter? Those all things that that a proper agreement can help solve when there's a problem. The triggers for compulsory sale matters, and funding must work with those rules. One problem I would really specifically look for: does the document still describe the business you actually have at the moment? Has the shareholders changed? Has ownership changed? Does your will contradict those business agreements that's in place? These documents need a proper review. And that leads us to the next one, and that's loan account protection. And something that I'm really passionate to talk about to business owners, because I've seen the effect in the sister states when loan account is not properly protected. There are two loan accounts. There's a loan account where you owe the business money, or there could be a loan account where the business owe you money. Now let's look at one of the most overlooked areas: the shareholder and directors loan account. Over many years, owners often leave money in the business. Now business owners fund that business. They inject their personal cash. They leave their profits in the business. They fund assets. Eventually, the business may owe the owner a substantial amount. The credit loan account is an asset of the owner. And on the owner's death, it forms a part of his estate. The executor need to recover that money. Imagine the business owes the owner, let's say, 4 million rand, but the business does not have that 4 million rand in cash. The money sits in equipment, it sits in stock, it sits in debtors, working capital. Now the estate needs the cash and the business needs that cash exactly at the same time. That can create enormous pressure. So you need to know the loan account balance. If you do not know it, go and check your last financial statements and have a good look at that loan account. They are probably not what you think it is. What the actual financial statements actually show and whether it's a credit or debit loan account, that really matters. And get your accountant to confirm it. And if you don't understand it, get him to explain it to you. Remember, the accountant do not sell insurance. He probably need to answer two questions to the business owner. Is my business liquid? Do I make money? And how much tax do I need to pay? What if you owe the business a lot of money? The money designated to look after your family. That money is going to be used to fund your loan accounts. I often see business owners reluctant to share their financials with us as advisors. I don't know why it is, but I don't know if they're scared that we're going to see something that we're not supposed to see, or I I thought maybe they do not understand what's in those documents, and they don't want us to see that they don't understand what's in that, what that figure shows. But those documents is crucial for your advisor to see them and to look for the things that needs to be discussed in your succession meeting. The next one is liquidity for business owners. And that brings us to the owner's estate. Business owners can be wealthy on paper, but they could still end up being cash poor, meaning there's not enough cash. And just ask any executive of the estate, what's the biggest problem in estate? There's not enough cash to wind up the estate. Business may be worth millions, but the family may not have the relatively liquid capital and cash to get the estate wind up. The estate has costs and it has liabilities. Tax may arise, depending on the circumstance. Estate duty may apply where relevant. Executors' cost must be considered. Existing liability still needs attention, and the family still needs money to live. I don't know about you, but we hear that all the time, how long it takes to wind up estate, and the danger is forced sales. A valuable business sold under pressure may not realize its proper value. So estate planning for a business owner is partly a liquidity exercise. And I often see that sole owners of business thinks that these things are not important and it's only for partnerships and bigger companies. But it's actually more important for a small company than for bigger companies. What assets exist? What liabilities exist? What cash will be required? Does the will align with the business agreement? How does the marital regime affect the ownership? Is there trust involved? These questions require proper and legal tax advice. Tax rules and thresholds may change over time. So this is something to review, not file away, to do somewhere in the future. Um, get hold of your financial advisor and sort these things out. Business succession. The final area is the one insurance cannot solve by itself. Who runs the business? Who can sign the quotes? Who has the banking authority? Who knows the important clients? Who understands the system? Who can make decisions in your business? Who knows the passwords? Who knows what you know? And that is operational succession. And that's not really our work, but that's things that needs to be discussed in succession planning sessions. Perhaps two children, and I'm talking about family business and one-man businesses in particular. Perhaps two children want to work in the business, and we see this a lot with farmers. The son needs to take over the farm, and the two daughters need to be paid out in cash. Is that wish in your will? Is there enough money to realize that? Will the state be able to follow those instructions? Maybe one of the children wants the value in cash and the other one wants the business. Equal ownership is not automatically the same as a fair outcome. A will cannot solve the management problem by itself. Insurance cannot train your successor. Succession planning connects ownership, money, and it connects capability. You need a 5-year plan, but you also need a 5-day plan. Where these arrangements fail, the danger is not only having no plan, it's believing an old plan still works. A buy and sell agreement may be years out of date. The business value may have doubled. A new shareholder may have joined the company. There may be cover, but no workable agreement. An agreement with inadequate funding. The shareholders' agreement may be in conflict with your memorandum of incorporation. The will may be in conflict with your business agreement. Sureties you've signed may be forgotten. The loan account may have grown dramatically. So business insurance is not a once-off transaction. It needs periodic review. Start by measuring, not buying. This is part I want business owners to remember. Do not start with how much insurance should I buy. Start with the problem. What is the business worth? What does the business owe? What does the business owe me, the owner of the business? And what have I personally guaranteed? Who are the key people in the business? What cash would my estate need? Who takes over operationally? Once those numbers and responsibilities are visible, then you can determine what needs to be in an agreement, what needs insurance, what needs legal work, and what needs operational planning. A practical owner checklist. Here are 5 things that you can do before buying anything. List every surety and guarantee you've signed. Ask your accountant for your current loan account position. Find your shareholders' agreement and memorandum of incorporation. Check whether they still reflect current ownership. Put your will next to these business agreements. Make sure they're not pulling in opposite directions. Ask who can run the business on Monday morning if you die over the weekend. If that answer is unclear, you've identified a succession risk. You can spend decades building a business, but leaving it can happen in one afternoon. Business life insurance is not just one policy. You can see from discussion, it's a couple of policies. It's a way of preparing for ownership, debt, liquidity, and continuation of your business. The agreement tells people what must happen. Funding can help make that agreement workable. Succession makes sure the business can still operate. Start by measuring the exposure, then solve them one by one. A full article is available on our AS Brokers website, and the link will be in the description below. It covers all 8 areas in more detail, and we will also unpack the areas separately in this Business Owner series. This video is general information. It does not constitute personal financial or insurance advice. Your needs, agreements, policy wordings, and circumstances must be assessed before you make a decision. Legal and tax matters should be confirmed and appropriately qualified by professionals. I'll see you in one of my next videos. Cheers, bye.